I had a pretty solid reading month in the month of July. We read some bangers and we read some duds, but we read a lot of books. I feel like July is usually one of the reading months where I really drop off. I have a very hard time keeping the pace, and it's summer and there's things going on, and I tend to just kind of fall off the map. But this July, I had to read a lot of my SPFBO books in order to get up my semi-finalist for Team Cassidy. If you guys haven't seen that yet, I will link my video where I announced my semi-finalist up here for you to check out. But because of that, I read a lot of books. I also read a lot of non-SPFBO books as well. I read 15 books and 7,434 pages. I listened to about 37 and a half hours of audiobooks, so pretty consistent with my normal average for audiobooks. My average rating was a 3.2, which again is very consistent for me to kind of be in that middle 3 range road. I started 8 series. I should not have started 8 series, but that's okay. That's okay. We're gonna work on continuing and finishing off series in the month of August. I had 11 indie reads and I DNF'd 4 books. So that's kind of just my general overview of what my month looked like. Out of the 15 books that I read, 6 of them were audiobooks, 7 of them were ebooks, and 2 of them were kind of a mixture where I would listen and read along. I gave out 3 2-stars, 5 3-stars, 4 4-stars, and 3 5-stars in the month of July. And I read mostly romantasy. 9 of my books were romantasy, followed by fantasy with 1 horror thrown in there. So now let's actually talk about the books that I read. Quickly, I'm going to kind of rapid fire through my SPFBO books because there is a full long vlog giving you guys all of my thoughts. I read Oathsworn Legacy by K.R. Gangi. This one I gave a 4-star. I really enjoyed this one. It took me by surprise. The formatting and the type of classical fantasy was just not something that I thought I was going to enjoy. It's following 2 brothers who are monster hunters, and it really kind of gave me Witcher vibes. They have a quest that they're trying to complete and a big bad that needs to be defeated, but I ended up really enjoying the characters and had a very good time with this book overall. Also read A Contract in Sulphorn. This one ended up getting a 2-star. It was about a djinn and how djinn are different and how they create contracts, and then we also had a guide that was kind of a moral of the story type thing where he was learning to be a hero, and in theory that sounds really, really interesting, but I felt like it was very character driven, but the characters never really did a whole lot and the plot never really moved forward, so I had a very hard time connecting with that book overall. Magic in the Cards got a 3-star. I had a lot of fun with this one. It's following a witch who is able to do magic based on cards, like a tarot deck of cards, but there are also werewolves, and there is a big bad that is destroying their city, and she has to work with the vampires and a werewolf in order to figure out how to defeat them. This book was just fun. I literally read it in one sitting, and I would recommend it if you're just looking for a silly, goofy urban fantasy time. I also read Blood of Houses. This one is a very epic fantasy. Think like Jade City meets Ashes of the Sun and a little bit of Malice, and it was way too long for me, honestly. I felt like some of the character development got lost a little bit the further we went in, but overall it was intriguing. I think with another round of edits it would be a lot more interesting. It did end up getting a 2-star from me. And then we had The Outer Darkness by M.V. Prindle. This one is a standalone fantasy that was about a world where there are demons and this darkness that blankets the world, and like demons that come out of this darkness, and the 5 heroes that need to save their world, I guess it was a world and not really a city. Anyway, I really enjoyed this one as well. It got a 3-star. I thought it was fun, I thought it was different, but I really feel like it could have benefited from a little bit more development and maybe being split into 2 novels instead of one really long one. And I think that those are all the SPFBO books. So now that we've rapid fired through those, let's go to some of the other books that I read in the month of July. The first is Flames of Chaos by Amelia Hutchins. You guys have not seen me talk about this book yet. If you want a vlog for all of my thoughts, you can go over to Patreon. I did a July vlog where I kind of ranted and rambled through life in the month of July, but I also read several books in that vlog, so if you want to check out my full thoughts, then you can go over to Patreon, which is linked down in the description. But I gave this a generous 2-star. This book is about a world where there are 9 different realms, and then there is one like main realm where you have to be a like full-blooded or like have permission from the High Council in order to be there, and we're following Hecate witches, and basically their curse is that they are extremely horny and everyone wants to sleep with them in order to get a very powerful half-blooded offspring, and everyone is basically trying to get in our main character's pants. And the number of sexual innuendos, and and not even sexual innuendos. The number of times that like our snipes and our banter were related to her body parts was just absolutely insane. There were some funny, goofy moments, like the pineapple scene had me cracking up, and I thought that the like world building was actually really interesting, and I think the plot could have been really interesting too, but because we spent so much time talking about her hoo-ha, I couldn't really get past it, and it was I think there might have been 20 pages in this entire book that did not reference sex at all. Like, this book was 563 pages, and I think there were probably 20 of those. That's insane. So I said I was going to continue on in the series, but I honestly don't think that I am going to. After reading some reviews, I don't feel like that part for me is going to get a lot better. So I think that's going to be a DNF from me. And yeah, very horny time. Then I read Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. This is one that I was not planning to read. I had an arc of it. At some point I needed to read it, but I wasn't really sure when. And I needed an audiobook to listen to while I was reading through my physical SPFBO reads. And I ended up absolutely loving this book. This is another one that was in that Patreon vlog, and I feel like Paul Tremblay really was trying to do a thing, and like I was telling Lexi, if you don't really understand the thing the artsy fartsy's trying to do, I don't think you're going to enjoy this book. It reads like an A24 movie, but I still loved it. There's a group of people that are making a horror movie about the Slim Kid, and it seems like they're kind of going off of something that they experienced when they were teenagers. They go to this guy and they're like, hey, you're tall, you're skinny, can you play the Slim Kid? And there is this mask that he is going to have to don, and when he has the mask on, he can't talk, he's got to be in character. Things kind of start to spiral and go crazy from there. I felt like this book just, I don't know, the atmosphere did it for me. I was intrigued. There were some gross moments going on. I was texting Lexi like, oh my god, did he really just do that? I don't think I can ever look at that again. And it just, I don't know, it worked for me. I gave it a 5-star. I really enjoyed it. I've only read 2 Paul Tremblay books, and both of which I have given 5 stars, so I'm so excited to read more from this author in the future. Also read The North Wind. This is a winter-inspired fantasy romance where Ren and her sister are living in a town just trying to survive. The winter has completely taken over, and they are all having a very hard time making ends meet. When every generation the Frost King comes and he takes a girl away in order to be what they assume is his sacrifice, Ren is determined it's not going to be her sister, but because of how she acts, she draws his attention to her sister and he ends up choosing her. Ren decides that she's going to take her sister's place and disguise herself in order to go away with the Frost King. When she learns that he doesn't have any intention of sacrificing her, he wants her to be his bride. I liked this book, but I definitely preferred the second half to the first half. The first half, I just felt like she was trying too hard to be, I don't like you, I hate you, and he was trying too hard to be very brooding, and that was just like their entire personality, but it wasn't done in a way that I actually found overly interesting. As we continue on in the story, it definitely becomes a little bit more of a friends to lovers type situation, and I liked it better, but even though this is a standalone set in a series, I don't know that I will really be continuing. This wrapped up nicely enough for me, and I don't know, it was fine, but it didn't really grip me. There wasn't any banter to grab a hold of. I felt like the plot was generally okay. The romance was a little bit too sweet for me. So if you like a friends to lovers and you can get over the kidnapping trope, then I think that you will enjoy this one as well. Next up we have Nectar of the Wicked. This is the Fairly Romantasy edition, and I did not expect to enjoy this book. I ended up giving it a 4.5 star, and I had a really fun time with this. This is following Flea, who is a changeling in the human world. Her guardian absolutely hates her because all she wants is her daughter back. And on Flea's 20th birthday, she is going to try to go and trade with the Wild Hunt in order to give Flea back to the Fae and get her daughter home to her. There's a lot more that happens from there. There's a strange man that comes and wants Flea's attention, and I don't know, the banter in this I had a pretty good time with. This was one of those books that the first 30-40% I was very unsure about it, and then as the book progressed I started to like them a little bit better. It is very smut heavy very quickly, so I kind of had to get past that. I don't know, I was telling Cassidy and Claire, I don't really have a solid defense onto why I liked this book. Looking back, it had a ton of elements that weren't me. Super smutty, super quick, and I don't know, the main character didn't have as much agency as I felt like she could, but in the end I ended up liking it a lot, had a fun time with it, and I did end up continuing on into Wrath of the Damned right after. This is a duology, and this was the final book in the series. Wrath of the Damned I ended up not liking as much. It picks up right where Nectar of the Wicked left off, but I feel like loses a lot of the plot and the banter, and while it was just okay, I ended up not loving it as much, and I gave it a very low 4-star, which in hindsight it feels significantly more like a 3-star. Then we have a fantasy that was in that Patreon vlog as well, Herald by Rob J. Hayes. This is one of the first in the trilogy of trilogies that he has been doing, where he released the first book in 3 different trilogies, all of which kind of wind together and are going to create one major overarching plot that can be read separately, but they work best reading them together. I started with Demon and then went Deathless and Herald, which is the like 3,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, more present day main series. Herald is more of the main series. Technically speaking, I think he says to read Herald first. I don't really think it matters, although I liked the reveals and things that you learn progressing the way doing it Demon, Deathless. Whereas if you read Herald first, you kind of know all of those reveals and you're going back to see how they all came to fruition. It's set in a world where God has been killed and the angels are slowly being killed off for reasons. And we have the godless king that is now reigning over the lands. It is considered to be treason in order for you to even talk about the angels or God or believe in God. And a lot of people still do, but they have to hide it. And we have one young girl who is said to be the herald of the ages and is going to bring in a new age and potentially rebirth God. I really like Rob J. Hayes' writing style. I think that the way that he is doing this trilogy is so incredibly unique and so amazing. However, I did not absolutely love this book. It ended up getting a 3-star from me. While I enjoyed it and I really, really liked the end and the way everything progressed, it was significantly too long and I felt like I was very bored for most of the story. I kept waiting on more things to be happening and I felt like we were having the same conversations over and over and over again. That is a complaint that I have from Rob J. Hayes' writing from most books, is that he feels very repetitive, but typically speaking I enjoy the characters or the plot enough that it doesn't really bother me. In this one I never felt just like super connected to the characters and the plot was moving incredibly slow, so it was a lot more noticeable to me that we were having these same conversations. I liked the conversations. I liked that thought of who is good, who is evil, who is right, who is wrong, but we had them a few too many times where I was just really getting kind of bored. But overall, I think that this book is definitely worth it. I will absolutely be continuing in all 3 trilogies once they are completed, and I would definitely recommend these. Then we have Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is the sequel to Powerless and it feels like it's just taking the whole world by storm. I really liked Reckless. Powerless is following Pei, who is an ordinary, and this is a world where ordinaries are not allowed to exist. We have the elite and they have magical powers, and they believe that if the ordinaries were to start having children with the elites, then they would breed out the magic and magic would no longer exist in the world. And so they are really hunted down and destroyed in order to try to keep the bloodlines pure. And I don't remember how often, but every once in a while they have this tournament to celebrate the elites and having power, which is basically like the Hunger Games. It is very Hunger Games-esque, but I had so much fun. The banter between the two of them was so incredible in the first book. Even though it was very Hunger Games-esque and very Red Queen-esque, I didn't care. I had so much fun with it. Reckless is picking up right where that one left off. There was a lot of things that happened at the end of Powerless, and in this one I still really enjoyed their banter and the mutual pining in this book. Like, so good mutual pining. But I did feel like it could not have less plot than Powerless. It just felt like it lagged a little in places, and if you are not going into this because of Peyton and Kai, I keep saying Kit, it's not Kit, it's Kai. If you're not going into this for Peyton and Kai, then I don't know that you will love it, but if you're going into it for them and their banter and the mutual pining, did I mention mutual pining? Then I think that you will still really enjoy this book. I ended up giving it a 4-star, had a ton of fun with it, and I'm so excited to see where Fearless picks up. Also read another internet sensation, which was Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I fell in love with this book. I loved it so much. I read this entire 600-page chunker in 2 days and just like I literally consumed me. It consumed me. I think that this was just so much fun. There was so much banter, and then the relationship I did have a few issues with, but overall I loved the setting, I loved the plot, I liked them as characters, I liked the magic system, and it sucked me in. It was so good. 5 stars, in case you were wondering. This starts off in a world where our main character is part of the third, the third quarter essentially, and they are cast out. They don't get very many rations for food or for water. They are sterilized and they're just trying to survive. She does something she shouldn't and steals the armor of one of the queen's guard, and they basically take her in for questioning. In the midst of all of that, something happens. She rips a sword from a stone and ends up opening a quicksilver portal to the world of the Fae. And I don't know, I had so much fun with this. The ending just was so intriguing. I had so much fun with it. There was a labyrinth, there are gods, the quicksilver magic, there's a voice in the head trope, which you guys know that I absolutely love. I will be shouting about this book because it was just so much fun, and I think book 2 comes out in October, and you bet I will be devouring that the second that it comes out. And the last book of the month that I read was A Crown of Ash and Silver by B.C. Fajon. This one got a 2-star. It was just hard, I think, to follow up the love of Quicksilver. It is another Fae, wintry Fae kind of book, and I was not expecting it to be a winter Fae book. This is following Aurelie, who is just kind of living her best life. She's an orphan, she's got friends, she's doing her thing, when one day she makes a deal with a hunter, I believe, to try to figure out what has happened recently to his other hunters. They are going missing. She gets herself in a bit of trouble and ends up getting whisked away to the land of the Fae because she is a witch. And in this world, the Fae don't really have a lot of magic. They can't really do a lot of magic, but witches or humans can, and the king of the Night Court needs her for her magic. I had so many logic issues with this book. There were plot holes left, right, and center. The magic system didn't really make sense. The way that they had different mates didn't really make sense. This is supposed to be a bodyguard romance, but it doesn't really feel like a bodyguard romance, and I felt like their relationship progressed way too quickly. I was getting whiplash by how fast things were moving between the two of them. I never really felt hooked. I never really felt engaged by their relationship. I did like him more than I liked her. She felt not like other girls and got away with everything, but it didn't really make sense. I love a spunky, snarky main character, but it needs to make sense in the way that she's handling things and the way people are responding to her, and I felt like this definitely did not. The sex scenes were just very cringy to me. I did not like them. They gave me a little bit of the ick, and so I ended up giving this one a 2-star. With that being said, will I continue on in the series? Possibly. You know me, I always want to know what's going to happen next, and I feel like this could be improved upon. The writing definitely struggled with in the beginning, but I felt like it got better. I think that the thought process in here was good, but there was just too many logic issues for me. I was not obsessed with the couple. If I were obsessed with them, I could have overlooked that a little bit more, but it was just okay, and I ended up really not loving this book. So there you have it. That is my very long July wrap up. I hope you guys found a recommendation off of this. Let me know what your favorite book in the month of July was. I really need to know. If you want to see more of my wrap-ups, I will leave the playlist here for you guys to check out. Thank you guys so very much for hanging out with me, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!